Hi, welcome to session 12 of Learn and Master the Guitar. We're still working on learning and mastering this wonderful instrument. This time we're going to talk about getting into some more advanced chords. Some two chords. We're going to talk about minor 11th chords, talk about major 7th chords, chords that take you beyond what every other guitar player in the world is doing. Because everybody knows the first batch of chords, but now we're going to take you beyond that to make your playing something special. In the guitar tips section, we're going to talk about chord substitution, how you can look at a page, and even though it has a C, F, and a G, just like every other piece of music, how you can grab some more different colors out of those chords to set your playing apart. Going beyond what is written on the page to give you that great sound that you're looking for. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now we're going to talk about going beyond the regular batch of chords that everybody knows and getting into a little bit more of some advanced chords. Some chords that add some color and some depth and some richness to your playing. I learned some of these two chords, and I tell you, I use them every time I play in a live situation or in a studio situation. They just add that extra little bit of color that separates you from the guitar player sitting next to you that only knows C, G, and D. So here we go. Let's talk about the first batch of chords. We're going to talk about two chords. What two chords are, a regular chord has a regular major chord, let's say a C major, is using three different tones, a C, E, and a G. Now we'll explain why that is in a future session. But for right now, it's using three different notes, a C, E, and a G. A two chord adds the second step of that major scale, that D, into that mix. So now there's four tones messing around in there. C, D, E, and G for a two chord. So it just adds the second step of the scale into the triad of the chord. And that's what a two chord is. So we're going to very quickly go through some basic using open string two chords, then I'm going to cover a couple of movable versions for you. So you ready? We're going to cover these pretty quickly, and then we're going to do some exercises with them. Okay, first one we're going to cover is a C2. That's one way to play it, with your third finger, second, and your pinky down here. Another way to do it, which is a little bit more comfortable for me, is to go 2, 1, and your third finger down here. You can kind of here's a C chord, that adding that second step, that D in there, gives it just a little bit more color. That's a C2. Next one we come to is a D2. Well, here's our D. If I want a D2, I just take that second finger off. Gets kind of an open, sweet sound. That's a D2. A lot of times you'll hear a D. Just going back and forth between a D and D2. Real common thing. That's where that D2 comes in. Next one we're going to cover is an E2. This one, here's a normal E. For an E2, we add the pinky out here. We got to stretch out to that F sharp, which is a little bit of a stretch. It might be difficult for your hand to do it the first time, but don't give up. Remember, limberness in your hand takes time. You may think, there's no way my pinky could stretch out there. Actually, your hand can stretch pretty wide if you need it to do so. And it just requires getting your hand a little bit more limber. Remember our finger exercise, our stretching exercises, all these things will help that hand limber up. I could never get an E2, but once you do it a few times, it gets more and more limber to where you can do it. Here's an E. Here's an E2. There's that F sharp in there. That's what gives it that rich sound. Next one is a G2. Here would be a G, a G2. I just drop my second finger down to cover this A. Now you'll notice that I had to take it off of this fifth string. Well, what happens to that fifth string now? My third finger is muting that string. If I went through it just in individual notes, you'd hear that dead string on that fifth string. His little rear end is sitting on top of that string. So in the heat of battle, when you play the whole chord, you don't hear that dead string. But it's in there, it's just covered up by the others. That's a G2. Next one is an A2. Here's an A. An A2, I just take that pinky off. It's a real open sound. Going through those again, C2, D2, E2, G2, and A2. Now those may be coming pretty fast by you right now. As you practice them a little bit, those will get more and more underneath your fingers. Now let's talk about, those were the open forms that you use most often. Now here we're going to talk about the movable forms. Once you get a couple of movable forms in you, remember you can play that anywhere on the neck, in any key. So I'm going to give you an F2 and a B2. I may even sneak in a G2 in there too, a 6-string form of it, so you can play it anywhere on the neck. Okay, so we're going to start on an F2 first. This one's based on the 3rd fret. You're barring this first finger all the way down. You have a C here and an F here and a G underneath that. It's a 4-string chord. Where's the F in this F2? Right here on our first finger, right there. That's the note you're pivoting off of. So if I want to, let's say make that an F sharp 2, I move this up to an F sharp, and I go from there. If I wanted an A flat, it would be like that. So I have F2. Now, if you want to think of it this way, if I keep going down, E2, E flat 2, if I went down one more, then I run off my neck, but look, there's my D2. So it's really the same form, I just barred it to make where I can make it in different places on the neck. That's F2. That's a 4th string version of it. If I wanted to use something on the 5th string, let's do like a B flat 2 or a B2. Let's do a B2. Keep it consistent. It's kind of like our B minor. There's our B minor that we had. I take my 2nd finger off, make sure that bar is down nice and strong, and I get a B2. And again, where's the B? Where's the pivot note? Right where that diamond is at on that 5th string. So if I want a D2 in that barable form, or let's make it an E flat 2, that way it doesn't get confused with the other. I come up here to E flat, there's my E flat, and there's my 2 chord. Okay, so I've got a 4th string version. I've got a 5th string version. Now, the only low version I know is kind of a growly kind of sound that I use sometimes. Let's say if I wanted a G2 in a barred version, I just do this one. It's a little bit of a stretch, especially to get that 2nd and 3rd finger separated away from each other. And I just do the first of the bottom 4 strings. Remember, movable chords don't use any open strings. That's a secret. Where's the G in this G2? Right there. If I wanted a B2, be right there. Or an A2. I use this chord sometimes if I want to get kind of a real open sound. Kind of gets a very distinctive kind of an open sound using all those 5ths and 4ths. Those are some 2 chords. Now we covered, what, 6 or 7 forms there? Those are the main batch that I use. Okay, I got movable ones. I can play in any key. I've got 3 different types I choose for movable ones. I've got my open ones down here if I want to get that sweet open string ringing sound. Let's talk about the next batch, major 7th chords. Okay, major 7th chords, we're going to run through about 6 or 7 of these. A C major 7th open version. Here's my C. Take my first finger off. I have a good C major 7th. Very common progression using that open C major 7th. Next one is a D major 7th. This one is a little bit different. There's our D, but I have to kind of switch my fingers around on this one. I use my 2nd finger and my 3rd finger to get this D major 7th, or actually that was a D major 9th. Let me show you this one. D major 7th would be this way, barring that first finger on that 2nd fret all the way down. D major 7th. D, D major 7th. Okay? Next, let's go to like an F major 7th. Here would be an F, right? Or the bottom half of it would be like this. If I want an F major 7th, I just come up on this. So now I have an F, an A, a C, and then this open E string right there. F major 7th. Let's do a G major 7th. Or you could do it that way too. Let's teach it to you that way. Again, I have my dead string right here. And first finger down here on this F sharp. Now these don't sound too interesting when you just kind of play them in a row like that. When you combine them with other chord changes, that's where this color starts to come in. Next one is an A major 7th. Here's A. If I switch my fingers around a little bit, I get an A major 7th. Second finger, first finger, third finger, and then open. A major 7th. Those are the basic major 7th open chords. C major 7th, D major 7th, F major 7th, G major 7th, and A major 7th. Okay? Now, as far as the movable forms, well, what can we do? Well, here's the two that I use the most. If I'm basing it off of the 5th string, it would be a B flat, or let's do it in B flat. It's kind of like a B flat 7th would be, but I put my second finger down here on the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and I get a B flat major 7th. Where's the B flat in this B flat major 7th? Right here on that 1st fret, 5th string is where the B flat is. So if I wanted an E flat major 7th, I'd have to come up, do something like that. Okay. Next one on the 6th string is we're going to do an F major 7th, and that's this one. Again, I'm muting out that 5th string. No bar in this one, and I just play the 5 strings. I don't play this last string because that would be an open string and then it wouldn't work. So if I want an A flat major 7th, I just move this up to A flat. There's an A flat. What about a D flat major 7th? No problem. I don't need my Mel Bay's chord Bible for this. I just know 3 forms and I know where to put them in different places. I don't need to go through 50 million different permutations of it in order to come up with an F major 7th or a D flat major 7th. I'm a guitar player. I went the easy way, so I only know 3 of them. And you just put it in the place that you need to use it at. Okay? Here's one. On the 4th string, let's say I wanted to do an E flat major 7th. I do this, and I bar these 3. Remember how our D major 7th was like this? If I scoot it up and kind of make a bar out of it, it's an E flat major 7th. And then I've got one on the 4th string. I got a version on the 5th string. I got a version on the 6th string. I can play E flat major 7ths all over the neck, all day long. And that's where the beauty of these movable chords comes into. Okay? The last batch, okay, is minor 11th chords. We've covered, what, about 15 chords so far? I got a couple more I'm going to lay on you here. There's only 2 that I really use for open minor 11th chords. Don't worry about the 11th part. All that is I'm adding the 4th step of the scale, which is the 11th. It just repeats. If I keep going up the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I hit the octave, 9, 10, 11, it goes up to actually the 4th degree of the scale, which is the same as the 11th degree, which is the same as the 4th. Don't get too lost in that. We'll learn more about that later. But we're going to start off with an open F sharp minor 11th. Again, I'm muting this 5th string, so I don't want to put it so up that 5th string comes through. I don't want that. I want to mute it out, and I have these 2 open. Pinky on the A, 3rd finger on the E, 2nd finger I like to use up here on the F sharp. Okay? That works great for an open minor 11th chord. If I want one off the 5th string, here would be like a B minor 11th. Okay? Here I could mute it if I want to, or not mute that inner string. That's a B minor 11th. F sharp minor 11th, B minor 11th. Now if I'm going a little fast for you, just put it on pause, get these chord forms underneath your belt, and then come back to me. Okay? Let's talk about some movable ones. If I want to move this, here's that F sharp minor 11th. Well, if I just move it up a half step and put my 1st finger down here, don't use that last sixth string, or that first string here. I just hit these 5, I get a G minor 11th. And again, that one doesn't have any open strings, so yay, I can move that anywhere I want. B flat minor 11th, no problem. Move it up to B flat, make my chord here. Okay? If I wanted one that's based off of the 5th string, well, here's my B minor 11th, remember. Well, if I scoot him up a half step and kind of bar this over here, again, that may be a little bit of a stretch, that's a C minor 11th. Here's the C in that C minor 11th. Okay? But Steve, I need an F minor 11th. Hey, no problem. I scoot it up to F, and I make the minor 11th there. See how that works? I don't need to look in my chord Bible to find it. I only know a couple of forms. I know where to move them in different spots. That's where that comes down to. Okay, after this, we're going to go into some exercises and work on these chord forms that we just learned. Okay, now we're going to talk about some guitar tips on how to use these chords that we've learned. You've got a whole new batch of chords underneath your belt. Now, it's not all that many. I mean, we've learned the basic chords, which that was, what, about 20 chords? I've just taught you about another 20 chords. So now it's really only about 40 chords we know, which sounds huge, but once you play them a lot, it gets to be just like the alphabet. I mean, you can go through them in any key. And these chords separate the men from the boys on playing harmonies and making creative chord progressions. You ever listen to a song and you think, gosh, it just sounds so rich what he's playing? A lot of what he's doing is just some simple tricks, of which here's one of the main ones: chord substitution. Okay? When I look at a piece of paper, or they put out a piece of music for me on a studio session, and they say, okay, well, here's the chords. It goes from a C to a G. Okay, well, I don't play a C and a G, because every other Yahoo's going to play a C and a G just like this. I substitute a 2 chord for both of those. Here's the rule. You can substitute a 2 chord for any major chord. You can substitute a 2 chord for any major chord. So if it's a C, if it's an F, if it's a B flat, G flat, a Z flat, doesn't matter. You can substitute a 2 chord for that, and it's going to sound rich and full. It works 100% of the time. Okay? So if it's going from a C to a G, let's say the chord progression is that. Okay, well, I don't play that. I play a C2 to maybe a G2. Just gives it a little bit more color, a little bit more depth to what we're playing. That's the first rule, 2 chords. What's the rule? You can add a 2 chord to any major chord. If the chord says D, I don't play a D. I hardly ever play a D. I play a D2. If it says G, I don't play G. I play G2. Well, isn't that going to screw up the rest of the band? Nope. I can pretty much say for these 2 chords, it's never going to screw up the rest of the band, because you're just adding a little bit of color into the mix. So you're not changing the harmony or anything like that. You're adding a little bit of color. Let's talk about the second one. The second one is a minor 11th. Well, what can I do? If it's a minor chord, I can substitute a minor 11th for it, and almost all the time, you'll never have a problem with it. That one I have to have a little bit more of a clarification on it. With the minor 11ths, they work almost all the time. So when I see a minor chord, I can substitute in a minor 11th, and it's not going to throw anybody off. Okay? So those are the 2 rules. 2 chords for major, minor 11th chords for minor. Here's your assignment for this week. I want you to practice all of the advanced chord forms that we just learned. Get them underneath your fingers. Be able to play them in different parts of the neck. Be able to play them enough to where you're not hesitating when you get to them. And you can form them in one block, not note, 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 note. You know, sometimes when you're going for a chord, and as you're just learning it, you kind of start off with, well, here's my first finger there, the next one. You kind of build it in a sequence of putting your fingers down. You want to get these chords down enough to where you come at them as a block. Okay? Practice all your advanced chord forms. Play through the chord substitution exercises in your book. There's also going to be exercises getting your fingers familiar with these various advanced chord forms too. Also remember the Jam-Along CDs. You can always get more resources off of that, as well as there's extra resources in your book as well. So let's go ahead and work out at the workshop, and I'll see you there. Okay, now let's put in our workshop time all these chord substitutions that we've learned and the new chords into a working environment to where you can start getting the most out of it. Okay, so look at your chord exercises page. Okay, we're going to do number 1. We'll start off pretty slow and then we'll speed it up, give you a chance to get these chords underneath your belt. Okay, number 1 starts out with 2 chord exercises. Ready? Starts on a C2, go. A minor 7th, D2, G2, just running you through these chords, and then C. Do it again, a little bit faster. Let me try that. Let me see if I can get it right. Ready? Go. Okay, look at the second one. That one starts out on an E2. Ready? Get that form right. Get that pinky stretching all the way out there. Ready? Go. A2. Back to E2. A2. Now, I'm not getting you very complex on your rhythms because I really wanted you to focus on forming these chords. Okay? Number 3, get a little work on these open chords and some of the movable ones. F2 starts it out. Ready? Go. G minor 7th. B flat 2 is next. C sus, C 7th. Let's do it again. F2, G minor 7th. Try and get all those notes to ring out. No buzzes. C sus, C 7th. F2. Great. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the major 7th forms that we've learned. Remember, C major 7th, F major 7th, D major 7th, A major 7th, okay, G major 7th, the movable ones, F major 7th, B flat major 7th, and E flat major 7th. Okay, so what is that, about 8 forms? Get a little practice on that. Starting with number 1, major 7th chord exercises, number 1. You ready? Starts on that C major 7th, and I gave you a little rhythm there. Down, down, up, down. Here we go. 1, 2, nice and slow, go. D minor 7th, F major 7th. G sus, I got to do a bar form. C major 7th. Okay? Now, let's try and do the next one. It starts on a D major 7th. Okay? Now, look at that rhythm. Down, up. Keep that hand going. Down, up. Okay? 2, ready, play. E minor 7th. A sus, G major 7th, A sus, D major 7th. Do it again, a little bit faster. E minor 7th, A sus, G major 7th, A sus, D major 7th. Great. That gives you a little practice with those. Now let's go on to the minor 11ths. Okay? Starts out with an E2 and it goes on to there to that F sharp minor 11th. Look at that rhythm too. Let's start it nice and slow. 1, 2, ready, go. Down, down, up. Keep your hand going. Down, down, up. Keep the hand going. B minor 11th here. E 7th. A major 7th. Do it one more time, a little bit faster. A2, B minor 11th, E 7th, A major 7th. Number 2, we end up with we start off with a G minor 11th. Okay, a little bit of a movable chord there. Take a look at that rhythm too. 1, 2, ready, go. Rest. D 7th. Back to that G minor 11th. D sus. G minor 11th. Great. Now let's start looking at some of the chord substitution examples there. The first one there goes through a basic, very basic 4-chord progression. C, A minor, D minor, and G. Now if I just play it normally, it sounds like this. Okay? Now if I use my chord substitution rules, what are the 2 rules? If it's a major chord, I can substitute a 2 chord in for it. If it's a minor chord, I can substitute a minor 11th. So I'm going to change that C to a C2. I'm going to change that A minor to an A minor 11th. I'm going to change that D minor to a D minor 11th. I'm going to change that G to a G2. See how that changes the color. 1, 2, ready, go. Do it again. Did you hear how drastically it changed the color and made it so much more rich and tonally or harmonically interesting to listen to? Look at that second example there. Starts off with an A, then goes to an E, F sharp minor, and then D. If I played it normally, it would sound like this. Sounds pretty plain. Let's throw in our chord substitutions. I turn the A into an A2, the E to an E2, the F sharp minor to an F sharp minor 11th, the D to a D2, and see if it doesn't sound a little bit more colorful to you. Ready, go. Let's play it again. Do it again. Hear how much more interesting that becomes to your ear. And that's what separates some players and then gives them that distinctive sound, is learning these 2 chords, learning these major 7ths, learning these minor 11ths and applying a little bit of chord substitution rules to them. There's other chord substitution rules as well, but these two I found have been the most bang for the buck in learning and getting underneath your fingers. So I would encourage you to keep on trying, keep on wrestling with it. Don't give up. You've come this far. You can certainly get beyond this and turn into the guitar player that you were meant to be. We'll see you next time.